What's up, everyone? We are super excited to have you here. We are here with Nader Dabit from Eigenlabs. And yeah, no, excited to actually speak about AI agent. How is the state today? How everything is going? And just quick housekeeping. If anybody has any question, feel free to ask in the chat. And yeah, we're super excited to have Nader on stage. So I would say let's get it started. Nader, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hey, what's up? Yeah, thanks for inviting me here, and I'm excited to chat about what we're going to be talking about today. A cool topic. My name is Nader. I'm a director of developer relations at Eigenlabs. The team behind Eigenlayer been here for about 1 year, and in February. So it's been a quick year, but it's been a lot of fun. So
Nice.
I would say I've been experimenting with AI since around 2022. Sold one company after building a viral app. Built an open source library called React Native AI, and to build a couple of other products, an app in the App Store that did pretty well. And now with Eigenlayer, we've been diving in deep to AI, and we have some cool stuff coming as well.
This is so cool, Nader. And by the way, congrats on the 1 year anniversary, work anniversary. I think like 1 year around this space is very fast, especially with AI agent. I feel like I remember DeFi summer, everybody kind of fork indexes, but it looks like agent forking and kind of like the ecosystem is running so fast around tooling, around frameworks. I'm seeing so many kind of integration coming to Eliza more and more. And I see also like new framework on Rust, for example, pushing the way. But what is your take? And I will start with something a little bit spicy. I think like looking at Kaito between yesterday and today, post liquidation event, AI agents right now are actually like for the first time in 6 or 8 months or something, they have negative sentiment, right? I mean, is this like something that is coming randomly? I just want to set up this to see what you're thinking here.
Yeah, I think if you look at every single hype cycle in the history of hype cycles, for the most part, I'm sure there has to be something that doesn't go along these lines, but I can't think of anything. There's always this very, very, I would say peaked curve that goes very to the top. And then once it tops, you kind of go into this trough of disillusionment. And then as more tangible or more realistic expectations come, the value comes back and it kind of goes back up. So I think a few weeks ago we were like at this peak like of hype where agents were really really just at the top of mind for everyone. It was not just the crypto industry, but also you had Anthropic and OpenAI and all these big companies talk about agents. We had AI agent tokens that were becoming worth billions of dollars. Like it was just an insane time. And I think we've kind of like come down from that hype cycle, and we're kind of like coming now towards the bottom. And I think we're going to start having the more, I would say, realistic growth that's going to happen at this moment. We're going to see more valuable things come, less bullshit. And it's actually much better, in my opinion, to kind of be at this point because people actually can have more realistic expectations of what's going on.
I mean, every bear market actually is very strong for bulls, for builders, right? So that's something, and I think like me, like I'm definitely like a big fan of like round building, and I think this cycle specifically, right? If you take out all the kind of like meme coin waves, like the AI kind of agent wave is the true, like there are so many brains coming from like Web2 AI research coming into Web3 because of the nature of Web3 rails, like fully fetching data, open source everything. And I think that's super exciting because literally like all the agent builder I'm speaking right now, the app, like the all PhD coming like super strong calibers. And I don't know if this is something that you're seeing right now because you're running a lot of those kind of like live streams. You're debating a lot of things around kind of like building agents. Is this something that you're seeing around, like this kind of brain capital coming in?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that as well, and we're seeing a lot of, I would say, overlap because of the fact that some of these frameworks like Eliza have like crypto native features, but also you're seeing like crypto builders become now really interested in AI and vice versa a little bit. So if someone's launching like some AI hackathon, we're seeing crypto people, they're introducing crypto primitives into these hackathons, which is really, really cool. And you're kind of like seeing a little bit more overlap than you do in some of the past things like NFTs. Obviously there's not a lot of people outside of crypto that would care about that. But with agents, 100%. You kind of do see that. And you also see, again, like AI has attracted the smartest people in the world. And agents are just kind of like an evolution of like what was just AI. This is now like a new primitive. So yeah, you definitely see that, and it's really a fun time to kind of be building in this space.
Oh yes, yes. Actually, I agree in tons of that, and I think like the amount of people coming is definitely like is testing a lot of like this kind of Web3 rails too. And like speaking about frameworks, like obviously Eliza is the one way to go. I still see that there is a lot of show, and the team are pushing a lot of like integration with kind of new Web3 kind of like technologies. Do you see kind of other emerging frameworks coming up? Could be like for other like Rust specific like people like what is kind of your take around the kind of onboarding developers to new frameworks?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me being like someone that is like an AI and a crypto developer, I've been mainly looking at the frameworks that have crypto native features built in or that are kind of like part of our industry in the sense of you kind of see some of these different agents that have tokens and stuff and like, oh, what are they built on? And you kind of see those frameworks. So that would be like Coinbase Agent Kit, ZeroPi. You
Hmm.
have, I guess, obviously Eliza, and then you have a handful of other ones.
Nice.
Um, so those are the kind of the ones that I've really, dived the most into. And I did spend a few weeks of my time like trying to understand like what else is out there, and like that has nothing to do with crypto. And what I've noticed is like those frameworks tend to be less social focused for the most part, and they're more like orchestration focused, like how to kind of like automate and orchestrate these workflows, and the focus isn't around like having an online personality. Whereas I think Eliza and these other ones, like the center point
Hmm.
is the fact that they have an online personality. Now, that
Makes
being
sense.
said, the most fun framework to me is still Eliza for sure. And the
Nice.
fact that
Yes.
there are like um, thousands or like, I don't know, like hundreds or maybe thousands of individual contributors. I don't know the number. It's probably actually probably in the hundreds, right? But the spike of like stars is just a straight up line, like relative to much other things. Um, and they're coming out with a V2 and it's pluggable, and like the fact that you
Yes.
anyway, there's just a lot of things about it that to me are just still a lot of fun and exciting. But I'm
Nice.
always open to try something new, and I'm always going out of my way to try new things because that's how I found Eliza, right? Like I was out there
100%.
experimenting with new things.
Yes. Yeah, I remember all your tutorials a couple of like months ago. And yeah, I had a chat, quick chat with Shaw like a couple of weeks ago in during Davos. They were all the Liza team. They were all excited about kind of like the 2.0 coming. And I think a lot of the time I'm thinking onboarding developers is hard, but I think having a framework, having a pre-built CLI is also helping a lot this kind of like developer onboarding. Like, how do you see builders today onboarding to those type of frameworks? Do you see like challenges around specific like I don't know, like plugins or add-ons, or do you see challenges around this specific programming language? You see maybe challenges there is no enough tutorial around the space. What is kind of like your take around developer experience when you want to start building an agent?
I mean, I think the key is getting the developer from like 0 to 1 as quickly as possible and with the least amount of pain as possible. And from there, you can be not the best in the world at everything else, but like you can be just good enough and still probably do extremely well. And I think honestly, that's kind of where Eliza V1 is. If you actually dive into some of the code, there are some arguments to be made that there's some design decisions that aren't the best, right? Like, but if you're like a developer and you're interested in AI agents and you go to their docs, you can actually just fund the repo, set a couple of environment variables, run a command, and you're off to the races in 10 or 15 minutes. That's kind of like very addicting, or I would say addicting. It's kind of like a lock in to some extent because now in that developer's mind, they remember, oh, I can get started really simply. And then they might dial in and add a new feature and they add another feature. And
Yes.
before you know it, they feel like they're kind of very, very um, good at understanding the framework that they're in. So therefore, there's a little bit of like almost like vendor locking, right? But
Yes.
if you kind of introduce them to a slightly better framework, but it takes them a few hours to get started, you might never ever get that conversion in the first place. So there's this balance, right? Like where you have simplicity
Hmm.
versus quality. And obviously, if you can be 100 out of 100 on simplicity, 100 out of 100 on actual like quality and additional things you can do. That's the gold standard. But
Yeah,
you know, things are just so early. I mean, I
I
remember
agree.
spending a few months trying to build out like an AI agent framework on my own, and it's a shitload of work. And
Yeah,
I remember like that was the reason that I also personally loved Eliza so much, is because I was trying to kind of like build all this stuff, like set all these different, you know, ways to kind of like do like cron jobs that kind of like, you
hmm
know, set intervals and like do all these different things. And even though again it's not perfect in Eliza OS, it's
hmm
pretty good. And they're working on the V2, so I'm really curious to see what happens with V2. Typically,
hmm
when someone does a big rewrite like this, they either knock it out of the park or they destroy their entire project. So we'll see
This is
what
a good
happens.
point. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward for that. And I remember you touched like one, what was that, an agent AVS or something? I remember you wanted to show something also on, that you tweeted out a couple of like weeks ago. You want to show us or something if you want to screen share or something like. I'm definitely excited, or at least like interested to know more about this. Yeah.
So there's a couple of different things that we have going on with EigenLayer, I would say in particular. And I'm not here to kind of like show that in particular, but I will just touch on it real quick. And if
hmm
anyone has any questions, they can always kind of reach out to me. But so there's the like primitive that is an ADS, which is almost like a piece of software that you build an eigenlayer from scratch. And then from there, you can pretty much make anything verifiable. So we're seeing people do like verifiable inference, but we're also seeing people essentially orchestrate like these decentralized GPU environments that people can use and rent out. And they use eigenlayer to kind of like verify the availability and a few different other things. So you could kind of think of that as like just less expensive GPU, and therefore the inference is less expensive, and you can kind of do a lot of the same things you can do with like Hugging Face, but a lot less expensive. Then there are existing ABSs that do things like zk-TLS, and
hmm
also again verifiable inference that you can just use. So if you just want to buy inference instead of going to Hugging Face or OpenAI or Anthropic, you can go to like Gaia, or you can go to Ritual, or you can go to Hyperbolic and pay you know, for the inference there, and it's typically like, you know, a lot less expensive. So those are kind of the three, I would say, like two main ways that you can build an eigenlayer with AI and AI agents. You either build an ABS or you use an existing ABS. We're seeing more and more ABSs have plugins to Eliza. So
hmm
Witness, Opacity, Hyperbolic, Gaia. There's probably a half dozen or so that have plugins that you can kind of just
Yes.
use with Eliza or other agent frameworks. And we are going to be doing a lot really with AI like in the next 6 months. So I think that it's perfect time to kind of
Deep
double
dive. Yeah.
down on it, because if a lot of people are like, oh, this is just hype, and if they're only attached to things that are hype, then
Yes.
it's an opportunity to kind of like dive into the real like
Yeah.
quality substantive things.
And there is a lot of things happening. I mean, you have your agent demo days. I know Safe is pushing like for an agent tone or something. There is the Eat Global. I think like judging a little bit everything, but those are great opportunity also to show. And I think like people will come up with more and more kind of like bounty around different frameworks. It's just very interesting to see, when people speak about, oh, there are 1,000 launchpad, and then you see virtual launching 80% of the AI agent wealth today, or like when we speak about there are so many agents out there, they're all copycats, but at the end, you see that the majority, I mean, XBT or like so many kind of social awareness mind share, it's a few of them, right? So I'm always like,
Yeah,
that's why also the reason why I'm so excited of contributing to Modern DAO, because like we need, like it's getting more World Wide West, and people will start forking agent to agent, and people
yeah,
like
yeah,
AI
totally.
agent consumer AI agent consumers will be the one that are kind of like will be confused, right? So you need to build social graphs on agents. You need to build public registration for agent specific kind of tracking, so that if you want in the future having some kind of like delegation of treasury to agents, or even agent to agent collaboration, you need to have something like that as kind of basic infrastructure. But Nader, speaking
Yeah,
about
totally.
infrastructure, I just
Well, I mean,
want
one thing
yeah,
I
go
just
for it.
want to talk about real quick that I think
Of
is
course.
interesting to kind of note is that you know, every single software primitive like comes into its age of abundance, right? So
hmm
when people were inventing the internet, like the average person couldn't go launch a website. So the few websites that were out there became very valuable. But once everyone can like launch a website, you can literally see that there are probably tens of millions or maybe hundreds of millions of websites, or even more, just due to the nature of
Exactly.
SEO and
Yeah.
exploitation. So like every website has like by nature zero value um, starting off. Now you look at mobile apps, for example. I can go and clone a React Native repo, and I
Mhm.
can launch a mobile app to the App Store in like 30 minutes now, right? But
Yes.
back in the day, before all this stuff existed, each individual app that was launched was probably relatively more valuable than it is today because there was
Mhm.
just like a small number of those. When blockchains were invented, like the
Mhm.
first blockchain, Bitcoin was extremely valuable because no one had ever done that before. Now you can essentially launch a roll up or whatever through one of these roll ups as a service, and
Mhm.
the value of each blockchain because of the number of and the ease of deploying that has gone down, and the relative value to just an arbitrary blockchain. If I just wanted to launch a random one and like do that, right, it's probably a lot less valuable.
Oh
I
yeah.
think you're seeing the same thing with agents. You know, like the original agents were like the first of their kind. We're like, oh, blown away by them because no one had ever done this. We're now able to click a button and launch an agent or copy a framework and launch an
Yes.
agent, right? So the relative ease of use has gone down so low that the relative value of just anything has gone down.
Mhm.
But we
Yes.
still see software companies come up and apps and websites that are worth billions of dollars because they've built something really, really valuable and it takes weeks, months, years to do that. I think that's what's going to happen now with agents.
Mhm.
Like, yeah,
Mhm.
anyone can launch an agent. They're all kind of bullshit when they first get launched. But
Yeah.
if you actually spend 6 months or a year doing something and building something truly valuable and unique, then
Mhm.
it is going to be enormously valuable. But that
Yes.
doesn't mean that like I can go and just build something now and like clone someone else and it's going to be
Agree.
worth anything.
Agree.
It's by
Yeah.
nature going to be worth nothing.
Agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, two things. One is building public is definitely stronger, but you also can see a better track record and attestation. So I think like this is the way that we will be able to show a difference between a strong agent versus kind of a weak agent, even from the consumer side, things will appear the same. That's why you need these kind of like social graphs for agents. But the other things I want to say is that you already see big corporation getting in more and more. I mean, Vercel came out with the AI SDK. This is super cool. Pre-build SDK on Vercel. Like you can actually like play with that already. I think it was last month or something they came out, right? So I definitely agree that bigger you will have definitely bigger people, especially infrastructure provider, they will come already with pre-infra already deployed, and I think that's something that is coming out. But Nader, speaking about infrastructure, I mean, I know we are early, but what are the things that you wish, like, what are kind of the gaps that we are still having that need to be filled around? Could be like builder deployments, could be having specific tooling around agents right now, because I see more and more integration with kind of technology company, but in the same time, I'm sure like you are seeing a lot of kind of gaps that are still need to be worked on.
From the infrastructure side, I mean,
Hmm.
I think that 6 months, 12 months from now, we'll probably have just an enormous amount of easily pluggable functionality that doesn't really exist today that will really open the design space just 100x or 1000x from what you can do that doesn't really exist yet. And also the frameworks and the configuration of all these things will
Hmm.
get like much better. So I think that it's kind of like if you look at something like AWS,
Yeah.
you have like 200, 300 different little services that you can just start putting together to build out very, very valuable products. I think that's kind of what we're going to be looking at, within about a year or so from the agent space. And you
Hmm.
are going to see a lot more creativity, a lot more value being created, and a lot less attention paid to these really, really basic examples of what people are doing. In
Nice.
terms of like what infrastructure needs to be there, I mean, I definitely think that we're moving towards lower latency, lower cost networks
Yeah.
being more valuable because you're going to see these agents performing a lot more actions and a lot more
Hmm.
frequency. and
Hmm.
therefore, by nature, the cost just needs to be cheaper. So anything
Yeah.
that facilitates lower costs, higher throughput, lower, or I would say
Hmm.
more scalability. Those sorts of primitives are going to be becoming more and more valuable. I think Solana is a good example of like what that actually looks like over a long time horizon.
Yeah.
When Solana first came out, people were like, oh, how are they going to accrue fees because the transactions are so low? Well, what if you end up having like an enormous number of like transactions, and that kind of takes care of itself because you kind of have that high volume. So I think that's kind of going to be, in my opinion, what it looks like. And I do think like I'm excited to work with Eigen Labs
Yeah.
just because there's just so much that you can build there and so many new primitives that you can come up with that actually
Hmm.
play really well with the plugin architecture of something like Eliza. So
Nice. Yeah, I mean, Eliza is getting so strong also on the integration side, and I think definitely it's super interesting. I'm just scared to see, kind of Eliza, not just on the framework side, but basically Eliza build agents, and then people just forking with the sake of forking to launch the kind of like agent tokenomics next, and people will start losing track record of which is the original agent actually providing value. That's why I like really like, I mean, the Kaito social awareness is definitely one single part, but in general, attestation and coordination. And speaking about coordination, I just want to also ask you, because we debated that in our previous like live stream. But what do you think we should? I mean, how should we think about kind of agent coordination today? Because we're always doing humans to services, humans to agent, right? But I think this time around, we can assume that agent will provide services to other agent, where could be not just DeFi specific application, could be social application, attestation application. What is your take on kind of like agent coordination?
I haven't really thought about this all that
Hey,
much, to be quite
I'm bringing
honest. I think it's
spicy.
super interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one thing that was debating was standards around agents, because right now, if you actually
Mm,
need to build
right.
endpoints for agent to actually like get services from other agent, is that how we are actually building a standardization, and this framework need to be either standardized or something, or need to be solved somehow by some other kind of like bigger company to force these standards of coordination, right? But that's an interesting topic, yeah, around coordination. No, sounds good. I mean, that's a little bit it, right? Like, I think we debated different things later. I mean, on the infrastructure side, I'm definitely understanding there are still some kind of like technical challenges. Any kind of like, I mean, where do you see the market kind of like going? A specific like use case? You probably like you're running like so many use case. And by the way, the DevRel agent, it's super interesting. I hope it's not disrupting totally, but I think like I wanna definitely like get support from her. I think like Solange, right, to get
Yeah,
on closing fiat.
that's that's a great example of something that is unique and differentiating. That is a combination of like a high quality team building a solution that solves a problem that no one had really done before, but it takes domain expertise to kind of understand what even to build in the first place. So I
Yes.
think like they're a very great example of something that has like a lot of potential if executed well. It
Yeah.
can't be done overnight. You can't
Oh yeah.
just fork Eliza and like have something like that.
Exactly.
There's a lot of like really hard work that goes into building something like that, and it's going to take another 3 to 6 months, I think, until
Agree.
you
Yeah.
kind of see the full. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great example of like
Yeah.
how you can kind of build like something that's unique and differentiating. It brings the question though, like you said about open source.
Hmm.
If you are a core believer in open source like I am,
Hmm.
and you want to build a company, but if someone can just fork your agent and go deploy it again, does that distract you from wanting to be open source? Because that's a good question for me, because I'm not sure I would want my $100 million company to be just open source like that. If I knew someone could just fork it, it would make me like question myself, even though I am someone that is like pro 100% pro open source.
Yeah.
If my company's existence depended on that, like would I still feel that way? I don't know.
Yes. The question here to ask is also, what is the value of the agent itself? Because like the Devil agent, Solange, is super interesting. Like the true value here, you can fork as many time as you want, but the true value here is that the training of the agent with kind of Devil history. right? So I think even if you have your 100 million company, like if this is the value that you can really provide to differentiate yourself is the training of the agent because it's verticalized, then I would say it's not a problem. But I don't know what you think about that. Like, what is the true value providing? Because you're not an 100 million company if you're just forking something, right? I think the value could be trained, how you train your models, and how specific to the use case and vertical you're going. So yeah.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
I think that's definitely one thing. But other use case that you see coming, I think like DeFi agents are so underestimated. Like I still don't see like balancing portfolio agents or something like that. Kind of like day-to-day DeFi use case. I don't know, but maybe you see more of these verticals.
Yeah, I think just financial applications are definitely there because I think when you compare the APIs of Stripe and all of these traditional financial companies to the APIs of being able to send a transaction with just a couple of lines of code, it really is kind of like order of magnitude improvement in terms of value transfer. And then
Yeah.
also the fact that you can do this permissionlessly and that there um, just so many different services and APIs and networks that you can integrate with is just ripe for a lot of like innovation. And also like we're obviously getting to a point now where bridges and faster bridges and better bridges are starting to become available
Mhm.
in practice. So I think
Mhm.
like a lot of these low latency use cases that can be unlocked by these faster bridges are going to unlock a lot of like
Innovation, yeah.
innovation in general. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think DeFi with maybe we call it AI-fi or whatever. The combination of
Yeah.
DeFi and AI is definitely one, and I think that it's hard to kind of bucket exactly a lot of these other use cases because stuff like Solange is a
Yeah.
really great example of something that
Yeah.
is a very unique value proposition. I think
Mhm.
these types of support agents might be a
Yeah.
really good category that are like really unique to a specific domain, but they have a lot of unique programming that goes into them that cannot be duplicated or forked for another use case that has to be kind of custom built.
Makes sense. Yeah, custom build for sure. Yeah. So I mean, I think we need to wrap up, right? But I just want to ask you. So if I'm a builder right now onboarding, what should I kind of like be focused on, and where do we see ourselves in kind of like 6 to 12 months, right? I think like Eliza 2.0, we're pushing more agents, we're seeing more kind of verticals. I think tooling around agents, but also tooling for like could be even layer two, could be on Eigen on AVS side that would be fine tuned for a agent builder specifically, right? Similar to how we saw smart contract, testing on Hardhat, on Foundry, right? Like we will have more of those tooling, I think. But what's your take on where we are next, where we'll be next, and what kind of builders need to be focused right now?
So, I mean, if I was a builder, I would just be very, very tuned into, and I am a builder. So, what I do that is I'm very tuned into all of the things that are happening and trying to just keep up and keep an ear out for something that might be interesting to me and valuable to me. New agent frameworks,
Mhm.
because I have a feeling we're going to see some really great ones that will
Yes.
be able to hold their own against Eliza in the next 3 to 6 months. So keeping an eye out for those, keeping an eye out for just useful insights from people that I like really trust. So I mean, being on Twitter is really kind of like a big, or X or whatever you call it, is like
Mhm.
a big value unlock if you're following the right people because you kind of get
Yeah.
new ideas that you can kind of then act on faster than you would on your own, obviously. So
Agreed.
and then like not being scared to just say, oh, I'm going to go try this new thing and I'm going to set aside 30 minutes today to go clone the repo, run it locally, test it out, and look at the code and see if it's something that might, give me some inspiration to build something new. So just always experimenting with new things is kind of my core like thesis of how I've
Nice.
operated and how I continue to operate.
Nice. And I think, yeah, and I think closing up, like so I'm assuming you're coming to Denver, but there is so many other ways, right, to kind of contribute in the ecosystem. I saw you just tweeted out the Asia kind of agent tour. It's super interesting. It remind me like the Builder Night in Asia, right? When we're like pushing like hackathons and kind of meetups. I think that's super cool. But how people can interact with you like today? The I think the AI agent live stream you're running on the hackathon side, or those are super strong, and I think it's a good way to how do you say kind of like share information with other AI agent builders, right?
Yeah, the AI agent, demo days has been cool because just hearing all the different things that people are doing and how they've done it has really opened my eyes to a lot of new techniques for building useful software. Period. Agents for sure, but just software development techniques really have kind of like opened my eyes. Especially the last episode, if you kind of watch some of those demos, they were just crazy
They're
good. And
strong.
anyway,
Yeah.
but how to connect with me and my team? I mean, I think just following us on social media and reaching out or commenting if you have any thoughts or questions. We have an eigen specific Telegram chat you can join by checking out the Build on Eigen Twitter. We have links there in our link tree. And if you're interested in AI agent stuff or AI stuff, period, even if you're not building an eigen layer, like obviously happy to chat anytime. It doesn't have to be tied to working on our platform at all. I'm always interested to kind of like connect with new people.
Yeah, that's the best. I think like even general kind of like builder topic. I think this is the common ground there are putting people together, right? We just want to build something interesting. We kind of want to experiment on different things, and yeah, no, super excited. So probably we'll see you in Denver. I think you will have maybe this workouts common session with other like DevRels. I'm still scared from. I think it was 2 years ago that we were with. Yeah, we were doing this CrossFit session, and I was like, I'm not gonna go anymore in any kind of like CrossFit session. But yeah,
Was that
so
with
looking
Patrick
forward.
Collins?
Was with Patrick. So if you're hearing this,
Oh
Patrick,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm afraid for Denver, or if you're coming for Denver for that. Yeah, I remember. But yeah, no,
That's
sounds
so
good. Thank you
funny.
so much, Nader, and thanks for what you're doing in the space. I think you're pushing a lot the boundary around advocacy and awareness, and I think we definitely need more awareness around agency and the fact that we're bringing so much brain capital around this space that is not just meme coin related. I think it's super super strong. Awesome. And what else? And if you're
Absolutely.
a builder, I think people should reach out to you. There is also all these modern kind of like Telegram we're pushing here. I'm putting here the things, but just share what you're building, share what kind of like AI agent inspiration you have, and feel free to DM us on socials. Awesome. Thank you so much, Nader.